Hey guys, today we're going to be setting up a simple mini fish farm here in the outbuilding. I'm going to be using this primarily for my rice fish, but you can probably use this for a bunch of different small fish. Because we're going to put a little bit of weight on these shelves, I made sure to brace them with just some random wood, and I also put a ton of polyurethane on these particle board panels. Once all that was done, we could start to set this thing up. So the first thing I have is a bunch of UN tanks. These are roughly 1 gallon, and they're not actually going to be for the rice fish. I'm going to actually be using these for the legit fish food feeding trial experiments that I've been working on. In the middle of all this, you know, we got busy and had to do some brine shrimp hatching, so checking the temp on this thing, making sure everything's all good. It's really nice to have this space here, not taken up by tanks. I don't know, we'll see if this stays. Also just got a restock on our eco mailers, as well as some of the legit bottom feeder that was out of stock for a temporary short amount of time. So if you've been waiting for that, we got a bunch of it. Back to the fish farm though. So here are the tubs that I have of my rice fish. These are breeding tubs that have already got some babies in them. So there's some black midnight Medaka fry, as well as some pearl galaxy Medakas. That's the pink noodle. We have this whole other bottom shelf that I'm assuming we're gonna load up with more rice fish tubs, but we'll just have to see how many more we get this summer. Using lids for tanks is something that I've never really done, but I got a bunch of them. We'll see if we end up using them or not. I'm not sure. So in my little tubs, I've never detected any ammonia. There's obviously a stage where there is a little bit of ammonia, but then it quickly turns into nitrite. And so that's primarily what I was battling with these little tubs, is trying to keep the nitrite from getting too crazy. I wasn't detecting any nitrate because it was just taking a little bit longer. You know, those nitrite oxidizers, they're slower. They don't get as much energy from the oxidation compared to ammonia oxidizers. It's kind of confusing science stuff, but it's not super important. What is important though is that eventually my breeding mops have turned themselves into little static filters. That's what I was hoping for. I knew it would probably just take a little bit longer for the nitrite oxidizers to grow to a sufficient amount to be able to handle the amount of nitrite in the little tubs. So I was patient and I just kept doing my little 50% water changes whenever I would get some nitrite. But as you can see now, we've been about a week without any. I'm gonna keep my eye on this because it is kind of weird that we're not seeing a little bit of buildup of nitrate, but our nitrite is gone. It's probably just because we were able to eliminate it with the water changes, and then there hasn't been enough ammonia going into the system to produce enough nitrite to produce enough nitrate to where we can see it. But as our fish continue to grow here, then we should eventually see some nitrate. But I think everything's gonna be balanced with just having, a minimum of 2 breeding mops in here. I should wait before I go on a monologue here. Again, really hard to see, but there is some nitrate in here, no nitrite. I think the reason why there's stuff in here is not because there's more fish, but because there are quite a few snails in here. You can see just down at the bottom how much more waste there is in this compared to these two, which I've gone through and tried to eliminate all the snails. It's kind of impossible, but way less waste in these compared to this one. This one has the nitrate, so I guess that's another little tip for if you're gonna do this, leave your breeding mops in, make sure you get all the eggs off. They're also gonna probably serve as a good medium for nitrification, almost like having a filter in here, but make sure you get as many of the snails out that are gonna hitchhike on these things, because I think it's kind of inevitable. That still doesn't solve my problem with the nitrate, but as you know, nitrate's way less toxic for your fish compared to ammonia and nitrite, so it's not that big of a deal. As long as we just monitor those things with the test strips and make sure it doesn't get too crazy, then we should just be fine. If we had the time and patience and want to do it, obviously a drip acclimation system, a constant refreshing of the water would be the best way, and that's what, master breeder people do. But we don't want to do that. We want to try something different, and specifically with the rice fish, because we have these little impromptu filters sitting in these, I think it's going to be all good. I just got to be careful not to go too crazy, or else, imagine having like 30 of those things and having to monitor each one of them. That would be a little crazy, but I don't think we're going to do that. In the meantime, doing another brine shrimp hatch. This time I went with 3 scoops of eggs. I've never done that many. I usually just do 2, but we're going to see if we can get a ton of shrimp out of this thing. I also got this little time-lapse camera. I don't know exactly where we're going to set this up and what we're going to have it watch yet, but I'm excited. It should be pretty cool. So if you guys have been watching Pond Season 11 at all, you know that I've had a little bit of a problem. Problem is that the rice fish in this pond, the females, they get buried with eggs. They have a bunch of them hanging off of them, and they're choosing to not really use the breeding mops, which is the easy way for me to collect the eggs. There's just so much other stuff in here that they can rub their eggs on, and I think primarily they're using this plant because it's perfect. They can just swim right through there, and it's probably a really good spot. I think there's just too much competition. I don't think the Sylvinia is really something that they use because the root system is so small, but they could be, I don't know. But what I did this morning was I singled out all of the females that had eggs on them, and I just put them in a little tub. Put in a few of these breeding mops, and I don't know if you can see at this point, but none of them have eggs, so that means they're all gonna be on these, and they totally are. One on the tip there that's not gonna focus. There's a handful of others. I think one of these has a lot. So I think this method, while it is a little bit more annoying, it's an extra step that I have to do, this is just gonna be the best way to get the mops full of eggs and then to get more babies. These rice fish definitely do eat their babies, and without having, you know, a ton of plants in here as cover for them to hide, I don't think we're really gonna get too many of them hatching and ending up as juveniles. I definitely don't see any small fish in here, so they're probably not in here. They probably all got eaten. So we'll probably take these females and put them back into the pond. I'm gonna leave this here, and I'm actually not gonna take these and put them into the room that we're just setting up. I wanna see if we can get these like covered with eggs. So hopefully the females, maybe there's some more in here that'll have some eggs tomorrow, or I probably missed one or two, you know? But I'm gonna try and do this little method here. Whenever I see females, take them out, put them back in here until these things are loaded up with eggs, and then we might just leave this here and have it be an outside hatchery. Last weekend there wasn't a video because I was still in the process of getting this little pond set up. So this is the pond that has the koi medacas in there. There they are hiding. It's super bare bones. It only has the sylvinia and then the breeding mops. There's nothing down in the pond. We used a black substrate, so it's kind of hard to see down there. I thought that would be the best thing to really be able to see these fish and have them pop, but I'm not sold on it being any better than if you had a lighter substrate. A lighter substrate too would help us be able to just see and hear better, especially on camera. So I think moving forward, we're probably going to ditch using the darker substrates, but also on this pond, we threw in the outdoor sweet potato, so this has a very limited root system, and I don't think it's going to compete with the mops. It'll just be fun to see how this one does. We have a crazy potato inside that's doing really good. But yeah, this one also has a little light, so you're not going to be able to see it because it's still daytime. And I actually originally threw some RGB LEDs around this pond, but they kind of sucked. I'm not sure if this video is actually even gonna come out. I haven't decided yet, but that was kind of a bust. And I think maybe if I would have spent a little bit more money and got some better RGB LEDs, it would have been cooler, but it just really didn't have the effect that I was hoping it would. No eggs on these things yet. We're gonna get some more fish to increase the population because I'm not sure what our ratios of male to female are. It's finally happened, guys. I now use fake plants in all of my aquascapes. So we have some beautiful, lush plastic plants here from Amazon, and I'm obviously just joking. We want to make sure that we're not using any live plants in our experiments because that just introduces another variable that's going to change things. So the plastic plants are perfect for that. They're obviously totally inert and they're not going to mess things up, but it is a hard pill to swallow to have big plants enter the fish room. We got all of our things plugged in, but we need lights. I almost forgot about lights. So we have some O&F Mist O LEDs left over from some of the stuff that we did earlier in the year. And I'm going to position these directly over the two tanks, right in the center. That way, no one tank is getting favored over the other. If we just did a bar, you know, a normal LED over this, then the tanks in the center would probably be getting more par than the ones on the outside. And so we want to eliminate that and try and keep everything super, super consistent and just make sure that that variable isn't different accidentally between the aquariums. I then just used a staple gun to hide the wires and try and get everything tucked away. Look guys, it's a humble little fish farm, okay? But it's my fish farm, so I love it. The black medacas are starting to get pretty big, which I'm super stoked on. I just moved the couple of platinums that I had in here into this one, doing a little bit of consolidating. And I almost forgot, we got some brine shrimp that I gotta get out of here. These strainers, by the way, are the best thing ever. This is the 200 micrometer, I believe, net, and it fits the brine shrimp perfectly. It doesn't let anything fall out, and it drains the water pretty quickly. I need to do a video on my methods here because I think I've gotten pretty good at it. That's another video though. Hopefully we can get our koi medacas to breed so I can have them there, and then, you know, I'll get so overwhelmed with babies that we have to start doing stuff on the bottom shelf, and then I'll figure out something to do for lighting here. I don't know if I'm gonna do the same thing with the Mist O lights because that's just kind of getting a little excessive. Probably just take like a 3-foot fixture and put it on low power since it's pretty shallow. But at the same time, it is kind of nice to have a little extra space for me to do things. I need to get another hatchery so we can do two things at once. That way we always have live brine shrimp as long as I'm not lazy. But it's coming together. I'm happy. I need to do a little bit of organizing, and you know, I know it's not much, guys. It's not crazy. It's not like, you know, there's nothing automated about this. Everything's very much do-it-yourself, but I don't know. Sometimes less automation can be better, even though it means you have to be paying more attention. I don't mind it, so it's all good. Zoom into the future with me, guys. We're now at about 2 weeks since we actually set up these tanks. I know it might be a little confusing because I haven't even come out with the first feeding trial video, and this is now gonna be part of the second one, but bear with me. This tank getting legit fish food, this tank getting food X because we don't want to get taken out by the fish food industrial complex. Already starting to see a difference in the clarity of the water. So the legit tank, take a look at that fish in the back versus the fish in the back of this one. This tank is obviously more cloudy. Similar amounts of waste down at the bottom of each aquarium. This is pretty par for the course, and this is basically what I experienced the first time we did this. Just hasn't been long enough to have an algae explosion yet, although I do see a little bit starting to form here on the glass. No nitrogen detected in either tank at this point, no ammonia, no nitrite, obviously. And that's always interesting to me because, you know, we don't have a filter on either of these aquariums. We have a truly sterile environment, or at least we started with one. I guess it is only 3 juvenile fish in each tank, so you wouldn't expect to see a huge ammonia spike, but no nitrogen at all with that amount of waste down at the bottom of the aquarium is always something that will blow my mind. Also, in the meantime, we got our other trial set up, so this is now day 2. I just did my first feeding on all 3 of the tanks. So legit fish food, food X again, and then we have a proper brine shrimp control over here. 7 fish in each tank. We were not able to sex these because they're just super young. I mean, if I was really good at it, maybe I'd be able to do it, but I don't think having only females or only males in these tanks would be that big of a deal. Maybe somebody would disagree with me on that. As the fish get a little bit older, you know, there's gonna be differences in the sexes in the tanks, and according to my research, that can have an effect on the dynamic of each aquarium. So we're just gonna go with it, and once we identify males, just come down to like how many we have in each tank. The ratios are gonna have to be fairly even though, which I don't know is gonna happen and probably won't. So the first part of the experiment will definitely be like what happens to the different tanks with the feedings, and we have that data from the first time we did it, so we'll have that to go off of, and that'll be nice. It'll be interesting to see if we see the same thing. Meanwhile, my tanks down here are a little lonely. We might shoot these over here, do some more rearranging, but I really like to have this space here for doing the brine shrimp hatchery and to store all my gear in the meantime. Let's go down here and check this. I don't think I showed off the spotlight that we have. This is the impromptu lighting in the meantime, but it's working out. These little tubs obviously don't need a ton of light, so putting a whole full-blown fixture up here might not be something that I ever do. Added some more Sylvinia to our tubs to just further regulate the nitrogen that gets accumulating in these things. And then we pulled in the tubs from outside that we've been doing our, you know, swap in, swap out female to load up the mops. Got our platinums over here. The fry should be hatching in the next few days, or at least the first ones that we got, and then, you know, as the days go on, there should be more and more popping up. I think we have like 15 or 16 midnight Madakas in this one, and I don't even know how many platinums we have. It's tough because they're, you know, a little translucent white fish, but probably close to the same amount, maybe even more actually. But yeah, things are going good. Not too much to manage, and it's not so little that it's boring. I'm having a good time. There's a pizza in the oven, so I gotta make this quick. I'm also in my front yard. But check it out. So I set this up for my wife out here on the front porch because she wanted a pond, but I didn't really feel comfortable having a normal big one out here just because it's less protected than the backyard. And you know, I've seen like a couple raccoons like once or twice only on the cams, so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna have anything crazy happen. So anyway, long story short, I set her up this little like planter bowl thing. It's super small. It probably holds like, I don't know, maybe 2 gallons of water tops. I put it on this little pedestal thing I found to just get it up off the ground a little bit, and I filled it up with Sylvinia, and I took this Sylvinia from the first pond that we set up, the pond that has all the minnows, and I just came over here the other day to check on it, and I moved some of this Sylvinia, and lo and behold, there's tons of baby golden white cloud minnows in this thing. I was super surprised because I didn't know that they must lay their eggs on the roots of the Sylvinia. I didn't know that. And so now I'm basically left with this bowl of, I don't even know how many fish are in here. There's got to be at least 20, maybe 30, maybe even more. And so if I was smart, I would take this whole thing into the backyard, or, you know, maybe even put it in the shed to keep everything safe. But we're just kind of rolling the dice out here. I don't think they're in any harm. I don't think anything's gonna happen to them. So I might just leave it here and let them, you know, raise them up a little bit. But I mean, this thing was sitting out here for almost a month. Maybe it was a little less than that, maybe like 3 weeks. Didn't tend to it at all. It's just a bowl of Sylvinia. I didn't think anything about it. I guess not a lot could go wrong with something like this. Obviously nitrogen's not really an issue. I also checked it recently just to make sure, but no ammonia, no nitrite, no nitrate. The little tiny fish aren't gonna put off anything, even that many of them. So yeah, that's my cool little random fish spawning activity in the bowl. Super fun. It's one of the reasons why I love fish keeping so much. Anyway guys, that is the mini fish farm. Still in progress, but I think you can see where I'm going with this whole thing. We're definitely gonna have to figure out like what we're gonna do in the winter with the rice fish and if we're gonna continue to do breeding with them. That's one of those things where it seems like it's a lot easier to do outside in the summertime, but you can still kind of mimic that summer effect indoors if you want to. I just haven't decided what exactly we're gonna do. I guess it depends on how many fish we get out of the rest of the couple months of the summer and just go from there. It's winding down tonight though, and the rainbow fish are looking really good. So I'll show you guys those fish really quick before I sign off here. Thank you so much for watching guys. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, hit the like button, and we'll see you in the next one.